I'm Emmerline Smy, and I'm a food researcher, food artist, and food producer. Food is pivotal to all areas of everyday life relating to our health, family, culture, and community. Food is also a huge part of the supernatural world and the world of myth and the afterlife. The symbols and traditions relating to food can originate from myth or be perpetuated by them. From their links to seasonality, feast, and famine, foods are intertwined with the stories of love, family, immortality, suffering, protection, deception, morality, countless stories that human beings have followed and borrowed. There's something else that different foods and myths share. When we start to look at the individual beginnings of both food and myth, we can trace them back along the trade routes of different peoples and different time periods. The British Museum Youth Collective have asked me to look at some interesting food stories from mythology, and we came up with two iconic foods: dumplings and the pomegranate. We wanted to look through the British Museum collection and share some myths that you may not have heard, and look at how these two fascinating ingredients that cross time and continents have impacted and conquered the world. At the end, I'll share a little recipe that I came up with that combines these two culturally important foods. Mythology is full of references to foods and drinks that bring immortality. These include the Amrita from Hindu mythology, ambrosia and nectar of Greek mythology, Chinese peaches of immortality, Zoroastrian haoma, and more. Here we see maids carrying plate after plate of food as the gods wine and dine at the immortal wedding of the god of love Cupid and goddess of the soul Psyche. Mythology influences everyday life, ceremony, and traditions as we try to match, celebrate, and honor these gods, goddesses, and deities in our celebrations, feasts, rites, and traditions. So now let's look at dumplings. When you think of dumplings, what comes to mind? A dumpling is generally a bite-sized bit of dough with a filling inside that is then cooked by steaming, frying, baking, or boiling. There are famous dumplings from around the world, including manti from Turkey, wonton, jiaozi, and zongzi from China, momo from Nepal, ravioli and tortellini from Italy, gyoza from Japan, fufu from West Africa. There are hundreds of dumplings from all over the world. Where the dumpling originated from is hotly debated, but researchers increasingly believe that it originated in Central Asia or the Middle East before spreading through nomadic Turkic peoples on trade routes such as the Silk Road. Another type of dumpling is the wonton. In Mandarin they are called hundun, and in Cantonese they are called wunton, which are both names for a faceless being in Chinese mythology. This being is the primordial and central chaos associated with the origins of the universe. The wonton can be seen as a symbol of the harmony of the humans and the world and the universe that they inhabit. This woodblock would be hung in the kitchen. There are wonderful scenes of Chinese New Year activities involving jiaozi dumplings. From the making and preparation involved, this is a multi-generational lively scene with whole families and communities involved. We also see them being cooked, served, and enjoyed. The commitment to these crescent-shaped jiaozi dumplings and the large number of them being prepared shows how important they are to the festivities. Jiaozi are traditionally shaped like crescent moons, a form that resembles ancient Chinese gold and silver ingots, and this shape is seen throughout Lunar New Year celebrations, where they symbolize both wealth and the renewal of time. We see this ingot crescent shape of the jiaozi in the hands of the god of wealth. The elaborate nature of the zongzi dumpling is a great example of history, mythology, beauty, and poetry that is embedded within Chinese dishes. It's a perfect accompaniment to the Danwu Festival, also known as the Dragon Boat Festival. This festival pays homage to Zhu Yuan, the famous Chinese office official and poet who was tried for treason and exiled. He was so upset at being exiled that he wrote passionate and patriotic poems and then later drowned himself in the river on the 5th day of the 5th month of the lunar calendar. Legend says that locals took boats up and down the river to try to find his body, beating the river with their paddles to try to drive evil spirits away, and throwing rice into the river so that the fish would not eat Xu Yuan's body. These traditions still remain, alongside the preparation and eating of zongzi, or sticky rice dumplings. In this print, Hiroshige captures the delight of dumplings through their regional differences and the relationship between dumplings, travel, myth, and sharing. Wherever they started, dumplings are themselves little works of art, whether cooked at home, at a street market, or at a Michelin star establishment. Many ancient foods sprung up across the world independently, and taking bits of dough and putting fillings inside may have been a global inevitability. But we can most likely thank the Silk Road, trade routes, and travel for bringing the building blocks of the dumpling and distributing it across the world in a fantastic sharing exercise. Today, almost every culture and country has their own unique dumpling as part of their cultural and culinary heritage. Next, on to the pomegranate. Native to the regions of modern-day Iran and northern India, the pomegranate has been influential to people and civilizations since it was first cultivated at least 5,000 to 6,000 years ago. The pomegranate is one of the earliest domesticated foods. From the Sumerians in Mesopotamia to the Indus Valley civilization, the ancient Egyptians, the Persians, the ancient Greeks, and so many more, they all prized the pomegranate, and they are closely tied to many of their myths, deities, gods, and goddesses. Their form is repeatedly found in sacred and decorative objects of all kinds, symbolizing life, death, fertility, and rebirth. Tanit ruled the heavens as a sky goddess and fertility as a mother goddess. She is often shown with pomegranates, due to its symbolic connection to the bounty of the earth and reproduction. In Mahayan Buddhism, Hiriti is originally a yakshi, or nature spirit, who devours human children in order to feed her own yakshi children, who number between 500 and 1,000. After a grieving mother tells the Buddha of the pain of the loss of her child, the Buddha hides one of Hiriti's sons, leaving her in a distressed state. Buddha asks her to reflect on her suffering after having lost one of her numerous children, and how it might feel to have lost one's only child. She is overcome with the knowledge of the suffering she has caused, and vows to protect all children, and vows to only eat pomegranates. The Buddha reveals her son is alive, and Hiriti experiences an awakening, and goes on to be worshipped as a protector of children. Cybele was an intersex earth, nature, and fertility goddess known as the Great Mother, also known as Agdistis from Greek, Roman, and Anatolian mythology. Her cult originated in Firja, in modern-day Turkey, but spread widely throughout the Roman Empire. Her annual spring festival celebrated the death and resurrection of her young lover, Attis. There is evidence that Agdistis is one of a long line of Anatolian intersex deities that go back to over 4,000 years ago. In this version, Agdistis was the child of Zeus and Gaia. The other gods were intimidated by their power and androgyny, and apparently drugged their drinking water and tied them up with a rope. When Agdistis woke up and went to stand up, they unknowingly castrated themselves. At this point, Agdistis becomes Cybele, the great mother of gods. Blood spilled everywhere, and a pomegranate tree grew from where the blood collected on the earth. After a nymph ate the fruit from this tree, she gave birth to Attis, and then abandoned him to be raised by a goat, but Attis grew to be a renowned, long-haired beauty, so beautiful that Agdistis, or Cybele, fell in love with him. As with myth, history and story, and food history, there are many different versions which morph and are related and debated. And an honourable mention to myth and mythology goes to Queen of the Underworld and Goddess of the Dead, Grain and Spring, Persephone in Greek mythology, or Proserpine as she is known in Roman mythology. It's probably the myth most closely tied to the pomegranate. Hades, god of the underworld, falls in love with Persephone and abducts her, and after tricking her into eating pomegranate seeds, She's bound to remain in the underworld for part of the year, which symbolises the cycle of the seasons and her dual role as both the goddess of spring and queen of the dead. The pomegranate scene in this and so many images represents fertility, death, and rebirth, and blood, the blood red of the pomegranate. And lastly, I wanted to end with these Ming funerary dishes that feature pomegranate and dumplings, along with other meats, grain, fruits, and veg. These foods were typical of the diet at this time in this part of China. Food and mythology are so deeply intertwined. They create a spiritual thread and harmony across time, place, and space between humans, nature, and the divine. So I was tasked with creating a recipe featuring dumplings and pomegranate. I took these sumptuous ingredients and decided to make a pomegranate dumpling. I chopped all the veg, stirred in the spices and seasonings. I marinated the tofu in some pomegranate molasses. I chopped the tofu into really small pieces. I de-seeded my pomegranates. I tossed a handful in my mixture and stirred it all up. I made a really tasty little dipping sauce. Then I used some round dumpling wrappers. I filled them with a little bit of the mixture, dipped my finger in some water and ran it around the edge of the circle. Then I sealed the dough with a few little pleats, making a crescent shape. Then I had some spring roll wrappers, so I put some mixture in that, folded it diagonally, forming a triangle. I put my uncooked dumplings in the fridge for about 30 minutes and then shallow fried them until golden. I served both the dumplings and the samosas with the dipping sauce, and they were fabulous. They were fun, filling, and full of flavour. The recipe can be amended to add or subtract meat and or veggies, and the dipping sauce really elevated the dumplings with its rich, deep flavour and occasional pomegranate crunch. I hope that you've enjoyed this video, maybe learned something new, and are inspired by the foods, myths, and food myths that we're all surrounded by in our past, present, and future.